The unit of AI governance is executable exposure. Why model accuracy is not enough when AI outputs become actions. For most of the past decade, the AI governance conversation has been measured in the wrong unit. The dominant unit has been accuracy. Did the model classify correctly? Did it predict well? Did it pass the benchmark? Did it hallucinate? Did it stay within its training distribution? These are real questions and they matter. But they are not the unit of governance. The unit of AI governance is executable exposure. This essay is the first entry in FO Lens. It is the entry that fixes the unit. The other entries in this series depend on it. Accuracy is a property of an output. Exposure is a property of what the output becomes. A model can produce an answer that is technically correct and operationally catastrophic in the same breath. It can correctly identify a customer and incorrectly authorize an action against that customer's account. It can correctly summarize a contract and incorrectly initiate execution against terms that have already changed. It can correctly extract a permission claim from a document and incorrectly treat it as a permission grant in the present moment. The model is not wrong in any of these cases. The output is not the problem. The problem appears at the moment the output stops being a piece of text and starts being an action against the world. That moment has its own properties. It has its own authority requirements, its own state requirements, its own timing requirements. None of these requirements were inside the output. They live at the boundary the output is trying to cross. This is why accuracy is insufficient as a governance unit. Accuracy describes the output. Governance has to describe what the output becomes. When does exposure begin? Exposure begins the moment an AI output attempts to touch any of the following: a customer, a balance, a permission, a piece of infrastructure, a legal obligation, a safety condition. Before that moment, the output is information. After that moment, the output is action. The transition is not gradual. There is a specific point at which the output stops being something a person can read and starts being something the world has to respond to. That point is the execution boundary. Most current AI governance frameworks are not built around this boundary. They are built around the output. They evaluate whether the model said the right thing. They produce reports about hallucination rates and bias scores and refusal consistency. These reports are not wrong. They are simply measuring something other than exposure. Exposure cannot be measured from inside the model. It can only be measured at the boundary where the output is about to become an action. 3 properties that change at the boundary. When an output crosses into execution, 3 properties have to be re-evaluated. None of them were knowable from the output alone. Current authority. Was the entity that requested this action still authorized to request it at this moment? Authorization is not a static fact. It is a state that can expire, be revoked, be conditioned, or be narrowed between the moment of request and the moment of execution. Current state. Does the present condition of the target system still admit this action? The world does not pause between the formation of an output and its execution. Approval timestamps and operating state are not synchronized by default. Current conditions. Are the surrounding conditions, timing windows, dependency chains, policy contexts, escalation triggers, still aligned with what the action assumes? Conditions drift. They drift quietly, and they do not announce when they have drifted past the point of admissibility. These 3 properties are the actual governance variables. They are what determines whether an action should open. The model output is upstream of all of them. Why this matters now? Until recently, the gap between an AI output and an AI action was wide enough to be governed by humans in the middle. A model produced text. A person read the text. A person decided whether to act on it. The governance layer was the human reading the output. That gap is closing. AI outputs are increasingly coupled to tool calls, API requests, permission claims, and state changes. The model is no longer producing a recommendation that a human implements. It is producing the trigger for an action path. When the output is connected to an action path, the governance question is no longer, did the model say the right thing? The governance question is, should this action open under the current authority, the current state, and the current conditions? The first question is upstream. The second question is at the boundary. Both questions matter. But only one determines whether exposure is allowed to open. What this means in practice. The shift in unit changes what gets measured, what gets logged, and what gets attested. Under the accuracy unit, the artifacts of governance are model evaluations, benchmark scores, refusal counts, and post hoc audits of model behavior. These describe the model. Under the exposure unit, the artifacts of governance are execution permits, condition snapshots, authority bindings at the moment of action, and evidence packs that allow a regulator or operator to reconstruct whether the action was admissible when it opened. These describe the boundary. Both sets of artifacts can coexist. But governance, in its operational sense, the sense in which a regulator asks, should this have happened, lives in the second set. The output is upstream of the boundary. The artifacts that govern the system have to be at the boundary, not upstream of it. Closing. The reason this essay opens FO lens is not that executable exposure is a new term. The term may feel unfamiliar now, but the problem it names is already appearing inside compliance reviews, board oversight discussions, and operational risk frameworks. The reason it opens FO lens is that the other entries in this series depend on it. The execution gap depends on it. Approval as time-bound consent depends on it. The carbon price moment depends on it. The noble objective depends on it. Every case study depends on it. Each subsequent entry will assume that the reader has accepted, at least provisionally, that the unit of governance is not the output but the exposure the output is about to create. The risk is not only in the output. The risk begins when the output crosses into execution. That crossing is the unit.